Incredible revelation. Millionaire finds little girl with 2 newborns on doorstep heartwarming. Thomas stood alone in his sprawling suburban home, his reflection staring back at him from a wall of glass. It was a gorgeous winter evening, snowflakes pirouetting in the chilled air, turning the world white and serene. But inside, he felt anything but calm. His high-tech gadgets blinked in sterile silence, a constant reminder of how hollow his success felt. Despite the wealth he had amassed, an undeniable isolation gripped him like a vice. He longed for connection, but his carefully curated life seemed to have rendered him invisible, even to himself. Then came the whimper. It sliced through the silence, bringing him back to the moment. Confusion flared in his chest, and he tossed aside his thoughts. The sound came again, soft, desperate. He turned, heart racing, to see what it was, fear and curiosity colliding. With trembling hands, he opened the heavy door, bracing himself against the biting cold that entered like an unwanted guest. And there she was, a small girl with wide, innocent eyes, 2 newborns cradled in her thin arms, swaddled in worn but lovingly wrapped blankets. Panic surged through him, sharp and electrifying. His instinct was to pull back, to shut the door on this world that felt so alien, so far removed from his life of luxury. But that little girl Lila had a face that begged for kindness, the very embodiment of innocence and vulnerability. With a deep breath, he stepped outside, kneeling so they were eye level. "Hey there, sweetie. What happened?" Words tumbled out of him almost as if they were foreign. The trust in her eyes tugged at him like a lifeline. I need help," she whispered, her voice trembling. As news spread among the affluent neighborhood, whispers of judgment filled the air. Neighbors peered over their manicured lawns, exchanging looks that cut through him deeper than the winter chill. How could this happen? A little girl? Abandoned? They murmured, their eyes darting back to Thomas. Was this a reflection of his character? The perfect life they thought he led suddenly didn't seem so perfect anymore. Thomas wrestled with growing sentiment inside him, a burgeoning sense of responsibility, unenclosed by wealth. Should his heart feel burdened, or should he shy away from this unexpected challenge? It would be easy. But the little girl and those helpless babies demanded more from him. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. It was in that pivotal moment, with Lily's gaze locked onto his, that he made a choice. He couldn't turn away. So, he wrapped his arms around Lily and her sleeping siblings, pulling them into the warmth of his home. Just as he took that step towards change, a phone call shattered his stillness, revealing news that tossed him into turmoil. It turned out Lily's mother was a local hero brought low, a woman part of his own community. Confronted with the definition of family he thought he never needed and flooded with guilt over abandonment, he felt his carefully built fortress begin to crack. The judgmental whispers seemed to close in, but were they really his own thoughts? Would he stay the path to reevaluation, or retreat back into the isolation he had come to know so well? Just as he began to tie together their lives, another visitor was on the horizon, one that could either unravel everything or offer him redemption. Would he have the courage to embrace this beautifully chaotic mess called family, or slip back into comfortable solitude? The door swung open wider, and in walked a figure who seemed so out of place in Thomas's pristine home. It was Sarah, Lila's mother, but not the strong, heroic woman the town knew. This Sarah looked tired and worn, her eyes clouded with shame and desperation. The children stirred in Thomas's embrace, sensing the shift in the room. Sarah's voice broke the silence, choked with emotion. She took a step forward, but hesitation made her linger on the threshold. "I came to find you." Thomas felt a pang of protectiveness surge within him. Yes, This was Lila's mother, but how did she let her daughter end up on his doorstep with nothing but two infants? Anger flared for a moment, then ebbed as he saw the torment in Sarah's gaze. This was more complicated than he had imagined. Lila needs a safe place, he said cautiously, glancing down at the little girl nestled against him. But you have to let me know what's going on. You can't just disappear and expect things to be okay. I didn't wanna I had nowhere to go, Sarah managed, shame flooding her words. I thought if I borrowed time, if I could just get things right, I'd come back for her. Lila shifted, looking from Thomas to her mother, confusion and a flicker of recognition in her eyes. Seeing her so torn between love and longing cut deeply into Thomas. He felt the weight of responsibility grow heavier. What was he supposed to do now? Borrow time? Thomas echoed, his voice mixing concern with disbelief. You can't just take your children and run like that. You have to fight for them. I know. Sarah's voice rose, the frustration spilling over. But sometimes life, it's too much. I thought I could change my mistakes. Thomas's heart softened amidst the storm of emotions. He had been so focused on his own isolation that he momentarily forgot the depths of vulnerability others could face. Here was a woman, battered by life, reaching out for her daughter but clearly lost. Listen, he said gently, I want to help you. But you have to meet me halfway. You need a plan. And Lila, she needs you too. As he spoke, he felt the shift within himself. Perhaps this was what he had been searching for, a chance to be part of something bigger than himself. Something messy. Something real. He found himself wanting to understand Sarah, wanting to help her rise, so she could rise for her children. But could she embrace his offer, or would shame transform into a barrier too high to climb? Sarah took a deep, shaky breath, looking past Thomas to where Lila stood, eyes wide and hopeful. I don't know what to do. I'm scared. Then let us figure it out together, he replied, determination firming his resolve. We'll make this right. But just as Sarah seemed ready to step forward, a loud knock interrupted their fragile moment. Thomas turned to the door, heart racing. Who could it be? Another visitor? How would this new arrival affect Lila, Sarah, and the fragile bond they were beginning to forge? As he walked toward the door, he mentally prepared himself for whatever lay ahead, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. What awaited him on the other side of that door could shift everything. Would it lead to understanding and healing, or escalate the chaos? Only time would tell. When Thomas opened the door, he was met with the sight of a stooped figure, a man in a long overcoat, his expression taut and wary. I'm looking for Sarah, he said, his voice gravelly. The moment felt charged, full of unvoiced questions. Thomas's stomach knotted. Who's asking? He replied, his voice steeled. The man shifted his weight, hands buried deep in his pockets. I'm a friend. A friend. Thomas's skepticism was palpable. But he stepped aside, motioning for the man to enter. You can see her, but you'd better explain yourself. As the man stepped over the threshold, Sarah visibly recoiled. No, not you. A storm of emotions sparked in the room. Thomas glanced between them, feeling a sense of urgency rise. Do you know him? He asked Sarah, keeping his voice even. Yes. She backed away instinctively, her hands clutching the edges of her shirt. He said he would help me. Help you how? Thomas demanded, his protective instincts flaring even higher. Deep down, he was uneasy about this man's presence. I'm Danny, the stranger said, nervously running a hand through his hair. I've been trying to track her down. I had a place for her, she just never showed. That's rich, Thomas snapped, his anger flaring again. She needed you back then, but you left her hanging. Sarah's face fell, tears welling up in her eyes. I thought he would save me, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Danny seemed to shrink under the weight of her gaze. I made mistakes too. Things didn't turn out how I hoped. Thomas stepped closer to Sarah, taking her hand. You need to focus on Lila and the babies. I'll help you, but I can't protect anyone if we don't know what unravels here. Danny cleared his throat, drawing in a shaky breath. I need to explain. I thought I could get you out of your situation, Sarah. I wanted to help you through everything. What situation? Thomas asked, his concern piqued. I was running a little side business, Danny admitted. But it went south. I didn't want to drag her into my mess. That's why I kept my distance. What kind of business? Sarah's voice trembled. Danny's eyes shifted, filled with unspoken fears. Stuff I shouldn't have been involved in. I lost contact because I needed to disappear. No more hiding, Thomas said firmly. If you want to be part of Lila's life, it's time for truth, Danny. His heart raced, sensing the tension wrap around them like a thick fog. The atmosphere was thick with fear and uncertainty. Sarah looked at Thomas, her eyes pleading for clarity. Do I go back to him? Is he going to make everything worse? As they stood there, the children between them, each heartbeat echoed their uncertainty. Thomas felt the weight of responsibility pressing down. He needed to protect Lila and Sarah, but at what cost? Just then, a soft whimper from one of the babies drew everyone's attention. Lila instinctively reached out, and something in Sarah ignited. She stepped forward, maternal instinct battling against her turmoil. I'm scared, she whispered. Thomas's gaze bounced between the woman he wanted to save and the man whose shadows loomed large. Suddenly, everything they had built began to crack. Could they truly navigate this calamity together? Just then, the door creaked again, and another familiar face emerged from the shadows, ready to disrupt everything.
Who was it?
What secrets lay behind their appearance? Thomas braced himself, knowing that the struggle for truth and redemption was far from over. The door swung open wider to reveal a woman, her blonde hair glinting in the low light, her expression a mix of relief and disbelief. Sarah? She breathed, stepping inside. Her voice was shaky, raw with emotion. Who are you? Thomas shot back, protective instincts flaring. He moved slightly in front of Sarah, preparing to shield her from whatever this new arrival could bring. Please, I just need to talk to her, the woman said, her eyes darting nervously towards Sarah, who stood frozen in place. It's me, Emily. I've been looking for you. The name crashed over Sarah like a wave, pulling her into a memory she thought was buried. The room filled with tension, and Sarah's breath hitched. Emily? But how did you find me? I never stopped looking. I couldn't. I knew you were in trouble. Emily's voice quivered as she stepped closer, clearly hoping to bridge the distance. I heard about the babies. I was worried sick. Why should we trust you? Thomas interjected, his voice sharp. He glanced at Danny, who looked equally taken aback by Emily's sudden appearance. The room felt small as uncertainty hung heavy in the air. Because I was there when it all went down, Emily retorted, her voice rising in emphasis. You have to believe me. I know about Danny's mess. I was trying to help Sarah escape? Danny echoed, his tone bitter. You think you can just swoop in and play savior? You were a part of that mess, too. Stop. Sarah's voice broke through the arguing men. Tears brimmed in her eyes as she shook her head fiercely. No more fighting. I just want to know the truth. Emily softened, her posture shifting from defensive to vulnerable. I'm here to protect you. What happened between us, it was wrong. I've regretted it every day. But I learned things, and I can help you with what's coming. What's coming? Thomas asked, his voice darkening. The weight of fear gripped his heart. He looked at Sarah, who was visibly shaken. Right now, they needed clarity, not more chaos. People are looking for you, Sarah, Emily warned, glancing nervously at Danny. We need to move quickly.
Why?
Sarah pressed, her voice trembling. Why are people looking for me? Because of what you know, Emily replied, stepping closer to hold Sarah's gaze. And because of who your baby's father is. The air around them thickened, each breath a knot of anxiety. Sarah's eyes widened, confusion and shock warring on her face. What do you mean? Thomas felt his heart drop. His mind raced ahead, considering the implications. Suddenly, everything began to make sense, and everything felt infinitely more dangerous. Danny took another step forward, desperation showing in his eyes. Wait, Emily. What do you know about their father? I know more than I should. He's dangerous, and he won't stop until he has what he wants. That's why we have to act fast, Emily said, glancing back at the door, as if expecting someone to burst inside. Sarah clutched Thomas's hand, her grip tightening as panic flared within her. You mean to tell me my baby's lives could be at stake? They could be. And we can't waste a moment, Emily urged, determination flickering in her eyes. Amid the chaos, a thought struck Thomas. What if everything they resolved here today could change the course of their lives? What did Emily know about the past? Just then, a loud bang echoed from outside, snapping everyone's attention back to the door, and a shadow loomed beyond, promising to pull them deeper into a storm they might not survive. Was this the moment they would finally confront the truth? Or would the shadows that haunted their past consume them once and for all? The door shuddered under the weight of the impact, sending ripples of fear through the room. Emily's eyes darted toward it, alarm flashing across her features. We don't have much time, she urged, her voice shaking with urgency. They're coming for her, and we need to go.
What do you mean by they?
Thomas stepped closer, his protective aura unwavering but laced with unease. Emily met his gaze, her resolve firm. The people who want to control Sarah. They want her knowledge, and if they find her, they won't hesitate to take drastic measures. Sarah felt a chill crawl up her spine. All those days in hiding, she thought she was safe. Now, the reality of the danger hovered over her like a dark cloud. What do they want from me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The babies are the key, Emily replied, taking a step towards Sarah, her expression earnest. Your connection to their father is deeper than you realize. He's not just anyone. He's powerful. Her voice trailed off as she seemed to struggle with how much to reveal. Powerful how? Danny cut in, frustration simmering beneath his words. Let us hear it all. He's wealthy, influential. He has resources that can erase anyone who gets in his way, and he believes you hold a secret that can change everything for him. Emily's eyes pleaded with them to understand. He's been searching for you since the day you left. The weight of her words gripped the room, each one punctuated by heavy silence. Heart racing, Sarah felt the weight of her past crashing down on her. She hadn't even considered that she wasn't just fleeing a life she wanted to escape. She was a target. The door rattled again, and a voice called out from the other side. Sarah, open up. We know you're in there. Sarah's breath quickened, panic surging through her as her mind raced. What do we do? Hide. Emily gestured toward the dark corner of the room. Quickly. They can't know you're here. Thomas gripped Sarah's arm, pulling her toward the shadows, his heart racing. He hated the feeling of vulnerability crashing over them, but he knew they couldn't stay exposed any longer. As they huddled together, hearts pounding, Danny glanced out the window. There are cars everywhere. They've set up a perimeter, he said through clenched teeth. Stay quiet, Emily whispered harshly, her eyes wide. She edged closer to the door, listening intently as the voices outside grew louder. Sarah, this is your last chance. Open the door, or we'll break it down. A thud against the wood sent adrenaline spiking through Thomas. What do we do if they come in? Sarah's voice trembled, fear weaving through her words. Emily's eyes softened. We can't let them take you. You have to trust me. We can find a way out. I don't even know what to believe, Sarah whispered, her uncertainty bubbling to the surface. How can I trust you? You left me before. Because, Emily breathed deeply, taking a small step into their space. If I'd stayed, I couldn't promise you I wouldn't get hurt, too. But now, all I want is to protect you. They all held their breath, feeling the tension carving a rift into the air. The voice outside grew impatient, the threat palpable. This is your final warning. In that moment, Sarah realized something essential. Trust had never come easy for her, but here she was, with lives depending on her choices.
She needed to decide.
Would she follow Emily, risking it all, or leave everything in her past to chance? Just then, the door burst open, splintering on its hinges as shadows stormed in. Would their world shatter in this moment? Or could they find a way to outrun what was hunting them? The answer loomed closer with every passing second. The shadows filled the room, rushing in like a tide. Sarah's heart raced as she strained to take in the chaotic scene unfolding before her. The door, now a splintered mess at the hinges, swung wide open. In the doorway stood two figures clad in dark clothing, their faces obscured by the low light. The men's eyes looked cold and determined, like hawks searching for prey. "Where is she?" one of them barked, his voice sharp and dangerous. Emily stepped forward, her voice trembling but fierce. "You want to find her here," she declared, trying to push back against the tide of fear washing over them. Behind her, Sarah felt Thomas's grip tighten around her waist. He didn't want to lose her, not now. Panic clawed at her throat, but she couldn't let it suffocate her. If they were going to survive, they needed a plan, and fast. "Run," Thomas whispered urgently, but the words barely registered. Sarah was stuck in place, unable to move, paralyzed by the fear of what could happen next. The intruders stepped fully into the room, their silhouettes imposing against the dim light from outside. "We won't ask again," one of them said, striding further in and glancing around as if the very walls had ears. "We know Sarah is here." Danny edged toward the window, squinting as though he could see if help was nearby. "If we can just get out of here," he murmured under his breath, his fists clenched tight. "Focus," Emily commanded, her voice low but filled with an energy that ignited a flicker of resolve within the group. "We need to create a distraction." She nodded toward a stack of wooden crates in the corner. "If we tip those over, it could buy us some time." It was a solid idea. Sarah felt a spark of hope. They could make it out of this. "Ready?" she whispered to Thomas. He nodded, determination lighting up his eyes. "On 3. As they counted together, Sarah's heart pounded like a drum in her ears. She could feel the weight of their situation pressing down on her shoulders, but she steeled herself. 1, 2, 3. The crates toppled loudly, spilling their contents across the floor with a thunderous crash. Dust and splinters filled the air, enveloping everything in chaos. The men shouted in surprise, momentarily disoriented by the sudden commotion. "Go, go, go," Emily urged, and with that, they all sprinted toward the back door, the way that led into the dark unknown. Sarah's breath came in quick bursts as they rushed out into the night, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The chill of the evening air hit her hard, waking her senses. They sprinted across the yard, aiming for the tree line that loomed in the darkness. Every step felt like a heartbeat against the fear that chased them from the house. But as they reached the edge of the trees, Sarah glanced back. The men burst out of the house, their figures silhouetted in the moonlight, filled with rage and focus. She could hear them shouting, commanding voices echoing through the night. "Keep running," Thomas urged, breaking her gaze away from the danger. They plunged into the dense woods, the darkness enveloping them, hiding them from view. "But where do we go?" Sarah gasped as branches snapped against her skin, the cool air rushing past. Emily turned slightly, her voice strained but resolute. "We need to find a place where we can regroup. There's an old cabin not far from here. It'll be safe." "Safe?" Danny scoffed, his breath hitching as they ran. "You call this safe?" "I call it the best option we have," Emily retorted, determination threading her voice. "They may have the numbers, but they don't know these woods like we do." With that, they pressed on, driven by the urgency of their escape. Every second counted, and the gravity of Sarah's decision weighed heavily on her. She was at a crossroads: flee and leave everything behind, or fight for the life she wanted to reclaim. As they ran deeper into the woods, the echoes of pursuit faded into the distance, but her heart thundered like it was still in reach. Suddenly, a sharp crack rang out behind them, a branch breaking, heavy footsteps approaching. "Keep going," Emily shouted, the fear in her voice hardening into resolve. Would they find shelter in the cabin? Would they truly be safe there, or was this just the eye of the storm? Sarah's mind raced. The answers danced just out of reach, but she knew one thing for sure. The battle was only just beginning. Every breath felt like a struggle as they barreled through the dense underbrush. Sarah could almost feel the fear clinging to her like the cold dew on the leaves brushing against her skin. Her mind was a whirlwind of uncertainty, but Emily's voice was like a beacon cutting through the chaos. The cabin is just ahead. Thomas clenched Sarah's hand tightly. Stay close, he urged, his voice steady despite the adrenaline pumping through him. They pushed deeper into the woods, every shadow a potential monster, every snapping twig a reminder they weren't alone. They finally broke through the tree line, revealing a small, dilapidated cabin that looked as if it hadn't been used in years. The windows were covered with grime, the door sagged on its hinges, but at that moment, it felt like a sanctuary. Emily reached the door first, forcing it open with a push. Get inside, she urged, scanning the tree for any sign of their pursuers. Once they stepped over the threshold, Sarah felt a minor wave of relief wash over her, though she knew it could be fleeting. Inside, the air was stale, filled with a musty scent that reminded her of forgotten things. It was dark, but small beams of moonlight streamed through the cracks, illuminating dust motes swirling in the silence. Looks like we've got some time, Danny said, leaning against the wall to catch his breath. Sweat beaded on his forehead, and the tension in his shoulders was evident. I just hope they don't find us here. Do we have a plan? Thomas asked, looking at Emily with expectation. What if they come looking? We'll need to lay low for now, Emily said, her expression serious. Let us take a moment to gather our thoughts. We can't run forever. We need information about what we're dealing with. Sarah nodded, her heart pounding not just from fear but from the weight of everything at stake. But what if they already know we're here? What if they're already tracking us? Before anyone could respond, a loud crash came from outside, followed by shouting. Panic flooded the room, and Sarah ducked low, instinctively reaching for the nearest weapon she could find, a rusted old baseball bat propped in the corner. The sound sent electricity down her spine. Were they already surrounded? Quiet, Emily hissed sharply, glancing at each of them. We need to listen. The voices grew closer, angry shouts echoing through the trees. They went this way. One of the men yelled, fury dripping from his words. They must be close. Check the cabin. Sarah's breath hitched in her throat, and she exchanged a terrified glance with Thomas. What are we going to do? She whispered. Emily's jaw set with a fierce determination. We stand our ground. We're not going to let them take us, not now. The door rattled fiercely as a heavy fist pounded against it, sending splinters flying. They all jumped back, adrenaline coursing through their veins as fear churned in their stomachs. The sound of footsteps grew louder. Someone was coming. Hide, Thomas urged, pointing toward the shadowy corners of the room. They scrambled for cover, squeezing into the dark spaces as they held their breaths, their hearts thumping in their chests. The door burst open, and the first figure stepped inside, his silhouette menacing against the night. They have to be here, he barked, scanning the dim space with a fierce glare. The group held their breath. Would they be found? Would they have to fight for their lives? And just when it seemed like all was lost, a distant sound pierced the tension, a car engine revving in the distance, growing louder. It was calling them, pulling them back into the world outside. Would it mean salvation or doom? As the intruder turned toward the sound, Sarah felt hope flicker within her. But the question still nagged at her. Would this unexpected noise bring them help or lead to their downfall? What awaited them outside the sanctuary of the cabin? Emily held her breath, her heart thundering in her chest as she stared at the figure who had just stepped through the door. The intruder's eyes darted around the cabin, searching every shadow, every corner. A bead of sweat trickled down Danny's face, and Sarah could feel a rising panic pooling in her stomach. Then they all heard it. The revving engine stopped abruptly, replaced by a series of door slams echoing from outside. The men were getting out of the vehicle. Emily gestured for everyone to stay low, pressing her palms against the floor as if that could anchor her in this terrified moment. Why would they even come out here? Thomas whispered, as he peered over the railing, his blue eyes wide with fear. What do they want from us? Whatever it is, it's not going to be good, Emily replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She looked around, her mind racing. They couldn't stay here forever. They had to make a run for it. "Listen," Sarah murmured. "Do you hear that?" The faint sound of voices reached them, muffled and disjointed. Two men were talking a few feet from the cabin, their low tones laced with menace. "I don't care what he said. They can't have gone far. Split up and search the area," one of them ordered. The sound of footsteps began to scatter into the woods, branching off in different directions like the limbs of a tree. They were being hunted. "Now or never," Emily whispered urgently, making eye contact with each of her friends. "If we don't move, they'll find us. We have to get to the back door while we still can." "Are you sure?" Danny asked, his voice shaking. "What about the it's now or?" Emily broke off, urgency flooding her voice. "We can't wait for them to come in here and grab us."
Trust me.
Thomas didn't pull away from Sarah's hand. Instead, he squeezed it tight, a silent promise. "All right," he said quietly. "Let us do this." They sprang to their feet, their bodies taut with adrenaline. Emily took the lead, guiding them toward the back of the cabin, her heart racing faster with every creak of the old wooden floorboards. As they reached the back door, Emily paused, ear pressed against the wood. Footsteps were moving away from them now, but the fear still coiled in her stomach. She pushed the door open just enough to peek outside. The moon cast an eerie light, illuminating the open space behind the cabin.
Go,
she urged, and they slipped out one by one, crouched low, moving toward the treeline. They could hear the men shouting in the distance but couldn't tell how far away they were. The moment they reached the safety of the trees, Sarah let out a breath she wasn't aware she was holding. "What now?" she gasped, glancing sideways at Emily. "We need to regroup and figure out where to go next," Emily said breathlessly. "We have to find a way to call for help, anything." But just then, Sarah felt a presence behind them. They weren't alone. "The car," Thomas whispered, his eyes wide with panic. "What if they came in a truck? They could cut us off." Suddenly, the sound of shoes crunching twigs made the hair on the back of Sarah's neck stand on end.
"We need to move now," she hissed.
They turned to run deeper into the woods, but just as they did, the light from the cabin illuminated the clearing behind them. Shadows of two figures emerged, silhouetted against the cabin's light. Panic surged once again, and Sarah's breath quickened as she measured the distance between them and the figures closing in. The urgency of their situation wrapped around her like a vice. How were they going to escape this time? What awaited them in the darkness? And would they make it out alive? But that wasn't the only question twisting in her mind. What if, somewhere in the shadows, betrayal was lurking? Branches snapped under their feet as they dashed deeper into the woods, the chill of the night air biting at their skin. Emily stayed close to Thomas and Sarah, urging them onward, her thoughts racing just as fast as their legs. Fear was an all-consuming force, and every rustle of leaves sounded like a threat. "Keep quiet," she muttered, glancing back to see shadowy forms still trailing behind them. The men had split up, but it was impossible to know how many were out there. A fleeting hope sparked in Emily's heart. If they survived this night, would there still be trust among them? They paused only briefly to catch their breath, huddled against a massive tree. Danny's skin was pale, and Sarah's wide eyes reflected a mix of terror and determination. "What's the plan?" Danny whispered, voice quaking. "There's a trail up ahead," Emily said, gesturing toward a less dense thicket. "If we can make it there, we might find a way out of here. Or we could run right into them," Thomas pointed out, glancing nervously at the faint path barely visible in the moonlight. "Better than just standing here," Emily insisted, her voice strained but firm. She felt the pressure of their gaze on her, and the weight of her words landed heavy in the air. "Listen, if we stay put, they will find us. We have to push through the fear together." They took off once again, moving as quietly as they could, hearts pounding. The trail was rugged, littered with rocks and gnarled roots. Each step felt like a gamble. A misstep could mean a loud crack, a shout, and discovery. Then, a chilling scream pierced the night. A sound so raw it made the hair on Emily's neck stand on end. Their pace faltered.
What was that?
Sarah gasped, eyes wide with horror. Please tell me it was just a deer, Danny muttered, but the tension thickened the air. They could hear the men's voices again, this time closer, far too close for comfort. Keep moving, Emily urged, grabbing Sarah's arm to pull her along. They needed distance from the fear gripping them, from the predators on their trail. The path narrowed, leading to a small clearing, moonlight spilling down like hope. A rickety old shed stood in the middle, partly hidden by undergrowth. Emily looked at her friends, the desperation mirrored in all their expressions. A shed could hide them. Let us check it out, she suggested, though doubt nodded her. They edged toward the shed, the door hanging slightly ajar. Emily pushed it open a crack, peering inside. Darkness swallowed the space, but the smell of damp wood and earth filled her lungs. We can hide here, she whispered, the words tasting bittersweet. Just as they ducked inside, a loud crash erupted from the direction of the path. The thud echoed in her ears like a drum signaling their imminent doom. They're coming, Danny hissed, panic overtaking his voice. In a frenzy, they shoved themselves into the corner of the shed, hearts racing as Emily struggled to keep them quiet. Breath held, the silence stretched, every pulse a reminder of their vulnerability. A moment later, figures entered the clearing, their silhouettes cutting through the night. Voices grew louder, and Emily dared to breathe, but the fear was suffocating. Would they be found? What would happen next? Suddenly, an idea sparked in Emily's mind. What if we distract them?
She breathed.
Thomas's eyes widened. You mean make noise to draw them away? It was risky more than risky. Their safety hinged on the next decision. They all looked at each other as if weighing their lives against the gamble. Just then, the sound of footsteps approached the shed, and Emily's heart dropped. She had to act swiftly. I need you all to trust me, she said, determination flooding her voice. What are you thinking? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. Just follow my lead, but first, we need to buy ourselves some time, Emily replied, pushing back against the dread pooling in her stomach. As the footsteps drew closer, the decision had been made, and there was no going back. Would their plan work, or was this just another step toward disaster? Emily's heart pounded as she formulated her plan. On the count of 3, I'll make a noise from the other side of the shed, she whispered urgently, glancing at Sarah and Thomas, their eyes wide with uncertainty. You guys have to wait until they move before you follow me to the door on the other side. Are you crazy? Danny hissed, fear coating his voice. What if they catch you? They won tea, Emily insisted, her resolve hardening. We have to do this. It's our only shot. Everyone exchanged worried glances, the gravity of the moment weighing heavy in the air. Thomas glanced down at Sarah, squeezing her hand for support. We trust you. Just be safe, he murmured. Stick together, no matter what, Emily urged, her eyes fierce. Ready? 1, 2, 3. She let out a sharp, loud clap against the wall of the shed. The sound echoed through the stillness, sharp and jarring. Emily darted towards the back, hearing footsteps immediately shift toward the noise. What was that? One of the intruders called out, their voices low and dangerous. Check it out. Another barked. As they moved away, Emily tiptoed toward the back door, her breath caught in her throat. She glanced back to see Danny, Sarah, and Thomas poised and ready, eyes locked on her.
Now, go,
she whispered. The trio slipped out into the moonlight, adrenaline pushing them forward. They could hear the men's voices fading into the distance, distracted by Emily's ruse. Heart racing, they made their way through the forest, trusting Emily's instincts and each other. With every step, the overwhelming weight of uncertainty pressed upon them, but also a glimmer of hope that this chaotic ordeal could lead to safety. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours as they ran, fear and urgency fueling their strides until they finally broke through the tree line to an open field. It felt surreal to be beneath the stars after the claustrophobia of the shed.
What now?
Sarah gasped, pain and exhaustion lacing her words as they crouched low against the ground, hearts still pounding from their escape. There's a road on the other side of the field, Thomas said, his voice steadying. We can find help there. A car, anything. Let us move, then, Emily urged, glancing over her shoulder. The sound of footsteps in the distance had softened, but their danger felt ever present. The four of them sprinted across the dark field, hearts thundering with every step until they reached the edge. The ground felt uneven beneath their feet, and Sarah stumbled slightly in her fatigue. Danny caught her arm, holding her steady. We're almost there. Just a little further, his voice broke, revealing the fear that masked his bravado. The highway was just ahead, headlights slicing through the darkness, like a beacon. Over there, Emily pointed toward the road. They dashed to the side, adrenaline coursing through them. We need to flag down a car. Seconds felt like eternity as they weighed their options. Would anyone stop? Would they be safe? Finally, a bright light swung into view. A vehicle approached, slowing as it neared. We have to take this risk, Emily shouted, her arms waving frantically to catch the driver's attention. The car rolled to a stop, and the driver leaned out, a stunned expression on his face. What are you doing out here? He yelled, eyes flicking nervously to the tree line. Please help us. Sarah burst out, her voice raw with emotion. We're being chased. The driver's brows furrowed, indecision flickering across his face. But Sarah's genuine fear softened him. He glanced back toward the trees. Get in quick. They didn't hesitate, scrambling into the back seat. As he peeled away, leaving the woods and their pursuers behind, the tension began to ease just a bit. In the safety of the car, relief flooded their senses. Tears brimmed in Sarah's eyes. We made it, she whispered, voice trembling. We did, Thomas responded, wrapping an arm around her. Danny sat quietly, his face conflicted, a mingling of gratitude and disbelief.
But it's not over, is it?
No, Emily said firmly, determination igniting within her.
We still gotta fight.
Ahead. As the headlights cut through the darkness, painting their path ahead, they knew the journey to reclaim their lives had only just begun. But together, they realized they could face whatever lay ahead. Moments before they turned onto the main road, Sarah looked around at her companions, gratitude swelling in her chest. She felt a sense of belonging for the first time in so long. Thank you, she breathed, the words bursting from her heart. For standing by me. They nodded, eyes sparkling with hope. Let us do this together, Emily said, her voice steady, her spirit unwavering. As the stars twinkled above, they drove into the unknown, ready to confront what awaited them, assured that this was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with courage, connection, and a promise of family. This was their moment of transformation. They would never turn back again. Now, this is your moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment on your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.